Hey there, it's Stephanie Shea,
Hey.
Chief Astrologer, and
Hey, this is KJ Atlas.
yes, contributing astrologer. We work together on Jan's Filler website, and this is our first, but hopefully not last, Q&A video. KJ, you did a survey, right, on Instagram?
Yeah, so many people sent in a lot of great topics, and we asked, what are you interested in learning more about? Whether it's you're trying to learn astrology or you just want to learn more about your own chart. So many people sent in great questions, but there was a lot of interest in the aspects.
Yes, that's a great place to start. Our plan is to kind of keep answering questions, but for people new to astrology, I think the aspects are one of the biggest questions that come up. A lot of people have kind of an idea of the signs and the planets, but then what's a square? What's a trine? What does that all mean? That's kind of how we piece it together. A big component of looking at charts and writing horoscopes, right?
Yeah, I would say it's often overlooked. The signs are really glamorous and sexy, and everyone wants to know about the signs, but the aspects, the planetary energies, and how they work together, that tells a whole other story that shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, to me, it's how the planets talk to each other in a chart or in a situation if you're looking at an event. And it all has to do, aspects are how the planets are in relation to one another. So what we're going to cover is conjunction when they're at the same degree or very similar degree, the same sign. We've got a square, 90-degree angle, trine, kind of triangle shape. We've got the opposition. That's a big one. And then we'll touch a little bit on the minor aspects, which are the sextile and the quincunx. So some of these aspects are a bit easier, I think, to work with than others, but they all actually, to me, have benefit in them.
For sure. Some can even be too good that they're a little lazy. You can get away with a lot more. Some require more work and digging deep into your psyche and your soul growth path to move past some of these aspects. So they all provide something worthwhile.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think that's a good message, that there's, not under a bad aspect or anything like that.
I agree.
And the way we determine like if this is even relevant in someone's chart is one of the things has to do with the degree of each sign. For example, in a conjunction, okay, we know if the sun is in Virgo maybe, and then somebody's planet Uranus is in Virgo right nearby. Well, what's nearby? Because someone could have a 20-degree Virgo sun and a 2-degree Uranus in Virgo or something like this. To me, that would not affect. So there's a thing called Orbs that astrologers use to limit the degrees that consider it officially that degree, that aspect, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And this is super important, because the closer things are, the more energy you're going to feel from whatever the aspect is.
The orbs help once you start to know your chart a little bit. You can see what degrees might apply. In a personal chart, I tend to use a smaller orb. So to consider something officially an opposition, a square, trine, etc., I think it really needs to be within 5 degrees. Much more than that, I don't think you're going to feel it as personally. The energy kind of starts to dissipate. So that's a good kind of general rule. We're not really going to talk about transits today, but you've heard of people having a transit. Oh, I'm having Pluto conjunct Sun transit. Well, when do you know you're in that Pluto transit? Because Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. And so if you're a Capricorn, don't worry, you have not been in that transit this whole time. You need to check your degrees, and then you'll probably be amazed, like, yep, that was the years. You know.
Yeah. And I guess
So yeah,
if someone's watching this and maybe they're not sure what a transit is, you can think of it as parts in your chart or an event chart, whatever chart you're looking at, being activated by whatever is happening with the planets above in the sky.
yes. And that is technically a different topic, but I just wanted to mention that to separate, yeah, those two out. That we're already giving ourselves ideas for future videos. But
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely would have a smaller orb on the transits as well as for world events. You know, it's interesting that Jan used a pretty wide orb for big time astrology that happens between the outer planets. She used 7-degree orb. So an example, back when I started working for her, we were getting into that Uranus Pluto square, and a lot of people were calling it, you know, really active 2012 to 2015. But we continued to write about that square through the spring of 2017 till it cleared that 7-degree orb, and it really seemed quite relevant.
Yeah. I mean, those type of world events take a really long time to begin and wrap up. So I think the wider orb is warranted.
Yeah, it made perfect sense. But in a personal chart, I think we're more on a micro scale. So I'd love to just kind of dive in. Maybe we can start with conjunctions. That's, you know, a big one that a lot of people have in their chart.
Yeah. I mean, I would describe a conjunction as when two planets are at the same degree or close within the orbs that you just mentioned, Steph. And when they're conjunct, this is like an enmeshment of the personalities of these planets. You described it once as characters trapped in an elevator together, and they have to figure out how to get along.
Yes, that came from Emily Trinkus, and it's such a brilliant analogy. And that actually may have come from her astrology teacher. This stuff gets passed on, but for sure, the energies can be quite different. Some conjunctions, I would say, have more of a natural flow. Sun and Venus. Well, Venus likes to feel pleasure, likes to feel good about themselves. That just seems like great. The sun is about what lights you up, what, you know, you're kind of accenting things that feel and look good about yourself.
Yeah.
But maybe if you had Sun and Mars, it could be a little bit more agitating at times, like feeling that constant drive or excess anger at times.
Yeah. I was thinking like Moon Mars, that could be tough too.
Guilty. No. Yeah. Luckily it's 5 degrees. It's at the outer edge of the orb, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. I get a little fired up and have to rein myself in.
I love it.
So,
well, it's interesting
yeah.
because if you have a conjunction in, let's say it's in Leo, they're both going to share that fire energy. But what if your conjunction is maybe at 29 degrees Cancer and 1 or 2 degrees Leo? So it's still a conjunction, but you're getting a little bit different energy. So it's not as intense.
It's true. I feel that it tempers it. And yeah, the technical out of sign conjunction, it's still a conjunction, but you have a little bit more to work with. So like you're saying, you don't get the double dose of fire. It gets cooled a little bit by water, but you're still going to feel some, you know, of the other planets' energies, some of the other sign. Maybe you feel a little confused. Well, what sign am I? And sometimes I feel like Leo. Sometimes I feel like Cancer.
Yeah. Both of them are going to be playing a strong role, but I guess it also depends on transits, like what's being activated at that time.
Yeah. And I know that you have you've done some research. We were looking at celebrities that might have some of these, and that would be fun to show that.
This was super interesting. I'll pull up my screen really quickly.
Oh, awesome. Meghan Markle.
Yeah, well, Meghan Markle was one I was looking at because she's been pretty popular in the news lately. So I don't think, well, she has, okay, this is a great segue into a stellium. So a
Yes.
stellium, which is actually short for a longer word, satellitium, is when you have 3 or more planets in a conjunction in the same sign. And she has one here in Libra with the moon, Saturn, and Jupiter.
Oh, wow. She was one of those Saturn Jupiter conjunction babies. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That only happens, every 20
20
years or
years.
so.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a really great example of a stellium. And she seems very Libra, but we'll get into some other aspects. She's got a lot of fire and passion in her too.
For sure. But I would think with all that, because with the moon kind of ruling your emotional processing, how you're kind of caring for yourself, if it's so much in Libra, I would think it has a lot to do with keeping the peace. And I think it's so interesting, like what kind of just happened with them and leaving the royal family, like to find that sense of inner peace in her environment where she couldn't be peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's a really great example.
Yeah. And then you were saying there's another important aspect in her chart.
Yeah, I forget which one. I was fascinated by Mars square midheaven because, as you know, a lot of what's been happening with her in the media lately is the media has not been treating her nicely at all. And the midheaven is your public image and your reputation. So there's this tension. So that's a great segue into the next aspect, a square. This is one of those ones that can teach you a lot. It's not a bad aspect.
No, none of these are, and again, I do think some of the more, I call them tense. There's tension in a conjunction often. Sometimes if it's, again, like more of a feel-good planet, like Jupiter being in the mix back with that Saturn, that added some optimistic energies to that conjunction. If someone just has Saturn moon by itself, that could feel a bit more almost, I'd say almost too realistic at times, where you got to think of the positive. But the square I feel personal about because I have a sun moon square. A lot of people do. Sun moon aspects are some of the most common ones because of the speed, how fast that cycle changes. And there's something that needs really to be compromised. It feels like it's different slightly than opposition, which also requires compromise. The square requires, I think, more effort to meet in the middle because they're not even facing each other. It's like part of you that you can't see sometimes. And the way to memorize what things might square each other, if you know the modal or the elements with air, water, earth, and fire, you can think, okay, fire. Oh, no, I have this backwards. Sorry.
That one's for Trine.
That was for Trine. This one is for the fixed, cardinal, and mutable. Those will square each other. So all the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, they're going to square each other.
Yeah.
So she, I noticed, has Mars and Cancer squaring the Aries midheaven.
Yeah. Well, and if you think of it, if we're making a case for why it's not bad, they do share the same modality. So they're on the same page as far as the way they move. So if you think, oh, what do Aries and Capricorn have in common? Well, they at least move at the way that they want to initiate things. They're moving at the same pace. And if you're looking at a fixed square, they're going to move at the same pace, even though they have different values or priorities.
Or approaches. I agree.
Yeah.
And I think with cardinal signs, yeah, they're the initiators, and their style of initiation is so different. And this is where you can get those conflicting voices.
Yeah.
For me, my moon in Capricorn is very careful, almost to the fault of like just taking very few risks. And then I have an Aries sun, and this orb is tight. It's a 1 degree orb square, where there's a part of me that finds that to be kind of a drag. And you think of Capricorn as the archetype as the wise older person, and Aries as the kid, and you can see the conversations that could go on in someone's head. And those two have to find a balance, because when they go to their extremes, it's not good. It's not good to take too many risks, or to be so cautious that you don't do anything. Uh, so in her life, like with that Aries on the midheaven, I was like, wow, that's very bold, public, and independent. But yet Cancer Mars in the 12th house is so hidden, like the
Yeah.
need to just be with family and be, kind of cocooned.
There's a rich private life there for sure. I'll tell you another one that's really interesting that I pulled up is
Cool.
Marilyn Monroe. And she actually has a full aspect pattern with her squares. So it's considered a T square, and that's a story for another day, but maybe we can do another video about aspect patterns. But you'll see the Saturn here squares the moon in Aquarius in the 7th house, but it also squares Neptune. And that is a whole story.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think because the moon is so emotionally sensitive, when it squares things, people can take things personally.
For sure.
And so, yes, just seeing that Saturn and Scorpio making that square, I just think, ouch, because like Saturn and Scorpio wants to rip to the heart of things and isn't always maybe as careful with people's feelings. And Saturn's such a tough love energy. It could have been, I'm seeing Saturn in the 4th house, even someone in her family that was very hard on her. I don't know, but
that could develop like a really strong inner critic that creates conflict with advocating for your needs, especially in the 7th house. I know, just reading and watching movies about Marilyn Monroe's life, she had several marriages and they were troubled. Her relationships with men were troubled. So there's conflict there. And maybe that stems from early life and other things that she went through. And then you have the Neptune energy. And I mean, Neptune as a whole is like Hollywood glamour and illusions. And she is an illusion, if you think about it.
Yeah, I see that as the gift and the challenge, because of the illusion. But I think that gave her some of her gifts that she had to offer in her public life. And with Saturn squaring off like that, maybe a trouble bringing a creative vision to fruition practically, which could have led her to rely on other people to do that, and they might not have been the best people for that. It's like if she had done it herself.
Absolutely. And also in this pattern, you have this opposition of moon opposite Neptune, which is exactly what you were just saying, like relying on other people to create that. And opposition is the next aspect that we would touch on.
Yeah, for sure. This is a good segue. So the opposition is exactly what it sounds like. They are 180 degrees opposing each other. The signs that oppose each other, you can think of an axis: Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, Cancer, Capricorn. That seems to be one of the most famous ones, probably because a lot of our astrology had been happening in that lately. But because they seem so opposite. Another Emily thing is that, and probably a lot of people, Cancer is Capricorn in a house coat. They still take charge, but kind of in a different way.
I
We
love
got
that.
Leo. Yeah, isn't that funny? Leo Aquarius, that's a big axis in the news astrologically. And Virgo Pisces. So if they say opposites attract. Sometimes you see a lot of couples in these signs. When it's in your personal chart, it's just two very different facets of yourself. And with the outer planet, because that's kind of generational, I think it can be like this long-term influence. So yeah, I could see her moon in the 7th, which is partnership. Neptune could have created this illusion where people appeared to be something that they weren't, and kind of getting sucked into the wrong situations.
Yeah. Another one I saw, I don't know if I even pulled up his chart, but I saw it when I was looking, is Heath Ledger had the sun opposite Pluto. And I also have this aspect, so I was really familiar with it and able to kind of make sense of it in his story. And I mean, Pluto is such an intense energy that has this desire to transform. And if that is creating tension with the sun, it makes for a really great actor, someone who can transform their ego and identity over and over again to become someone else to tell a story. But he went really deep. He let Pluto take control. I think with oppositions, you have to find a balance. And becoming the Joker in Batman, he really leaned into the Pluto side of it and got the better of him. So I think with oppositions, and this one in particular I've experienced myself, is definitely one where you have to keep a balance. And it's a gift too, because I feel like I'm really in tune with helping people uncover their shadows. And I love doing shadow work and bringing it to the surface for good reasons. And it really is just about a balance of those polarities, because on the axis, whatever axis it's on, they share a common goal. Like if it's Taurus and Scorpio, the goal is, in a way, security. Taurus wants to have security on Earth. Scorpio wants to have like emotional security, and control. That's another one of the themes of that axis.
That makes sense. And that's just kind of a good thing to remember about all the opposite signs, is they are so similar, and that's why they butt heads. And you see that played out in the world, opposing sides. People actually kind of want the same thing. They just have a very different idea about how to get it. And I think with an opposition in a chart, that maybe that Pluto especially would feel so compelling, almost like you have to like work on your strategies to resist the darker energies of Pluto. I have a Venus Pluto opposition, so I kind of get it, but I think Sun would be way more powerful.
It's interesting, to say the least. But like Heath, I was also really interested in acting even as a young child. So I think there is this desire to reinvent yourself and recreate yourself over and over again, with the energy of Pluto pushing to transform.
Yeah, that's a positive use of it. When I see that in the opposites, how people can integrate the two parts of their personality. So if it's something like Pluto, and embracing that and being okay, I have a less static lifetime this time. I'm here to actually, like, changing is the right way to go. And I think some people maybe in their past life have had enough upheaval, and they come in like super earthy, grounded, ready to just be chill.
Well, I must have had a slumber last time.
Maybe. So yeah, I think those are good points on this opposition. Now, the trine, I think we're ready to jump to. That's what people would call an easier aspect. It's a 90-degree angle. It looks like the side of a triangle. So you think of just kind of sliding around on this easy angle. And this is the one I was saying has to do with elements. You can remember fire, air, water, earth. The same elements are going to trine each other. And that makes sense because they have that fundamental similarity of being fiery.
An example of that. So Maryland actually has a grand water trine. So that's another aspect pattern, but there's a trine between Saturn and Mars in Pisces, and then the North Node and loosely Pluto in Cancer. So they all create this green triangle, and they're all in the same element. So they work together.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. It just makes me think of some hidden psychic abilities in there. And maybe not trusting our own intuition sometime, but it looks like it's probably really some good intuition.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and I think
example.
like what you were saying about people sometimes getting complacent with this. I have a grand trine. And yeah, sometimes things you're like, oh, well, it always works out, because it kind of does. You get a little support and maybe you wouldn't work for something as hard, and then not get as much done as if it was a more challenging aspect.
Yeah, I was just curious. I just looked up Venus trine Jupiter because that just sounds like the most luck ever. Look at all these actresses like Blake Lively. We were talking about her earlier because she's Sun conjunct Venus. So Sun conjunct Venus, trine Jupiter. She's a model and an actress. Yeah. She embodies Venus in every way.
Very Venusian.
Yeah. So these are all people that have
that
Venus trine Jupiter. Emma Stone.
It seems like just good money mojo too with something like that.
Lots of actresses.
Yeah, it's so fun to look at these.
Yeah. It's a great way to learn too.
Yeah, definitely. I've been using this as a resource. This just astro.charts or astro-charts.com up there. And like once people know the power of their trines, they can kind of work them. And especially, again, we probably will do a transits video. If you know a transit is going to accentuate a trine in your chart, like that's the time to start planning to do some things with it. So that window, you may get some good mojo anyway, but don't let that window of good energy go to waste when you could be maximizing it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
I get excited about trines. They're fun. So let's see. Any other notes on trines, or should we move on to the minor aspects?
No, I don't think so. No other notes on trines.
Okay. So minor aspects don't come up as much, but I use them. Most people use them. And I think if they're being activated or highlighted by other planets in a chart, they can be just as important as a major. So the minor ones is Quincunx, which is also known as inconjunct, and it's a 150-degree angle, or when the planets are 5 zodiac signs apart. And for some reason, I always forget this and I have to look it up. I'm like, wait a minute, who is Quincunx who? But Quincunx is like a disconnect. It may be the parts of yourself that are hard to reconcile, or in two people's charts where they just won't quite ever get each other.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too that so many people consider this one to be a minor aspect, because I've been writing horoscopes for a while, like daily horoscopes, and tracking what's happening. And I've noticed that on days where there's a quincunx aspect, it is very loud. Think about it, people too, when you meet people, sometimes it can be like an electrifying, like intriguing connection. Let's say you have someone who's a Cancer and Aquarius, you know, they're very different. They're operating on completely different wavelengths. But I've seen couples that have this, and it can be that opposites attract. Like they're fascinated because they don't think at all the same way.
It reminds me of like the puzzle that you just really want to solve, and you just keep messing with like, wait, how does that work? You know, wait, how does your brain work? It takes more to bridge that in two people and in yourself. But again, you can actually become the master of it because you have to do the work.
I'd say this one definitely takes more work than any of the other ones because they have nothing in common.
But I'm with you. I've seen the couples like that too. And I think it's good actually to connect with people that you might quincunx with to try to learn from them.
Yeah.
So that's that one. And then the sextile, which is known as an easier minor aspect. It's a 60-degree angle. So it's when they're two signs apart. I find that much easier to remember. And you can kind of see what they would have in common, you know, Aries and Gemini. There's websites, you know, that'll use some keywords like, oh, they would be like the children of the zodiac. And that makes sense. They're very playful. I can understand that. Oh, we are. We're the children. I get it. Totally. Taurus and Cancer. I've always, even before I studied astrology, I'm like, Taurus and Cancer seem really similar. And it's
Taurus
like,
and Cancer are like baking cookies together.
So cozy. I don't think they leave the house. That one's easier to calculate quickly in your head. You just think two signs apart. I think it's really in the flow, and I have seen this work positively for people in their personal charts and in synastry.
I think of it as like a high five because it's not, they don't totally embrace each other like a trine, but they're like, I support what you're doing and I do too. You keep doing it your way and I'll do it mine.
I like that. And they can kind of get, I know why you're doing that. I do it slightly different, but totally, I would do that too. I like thinking about Sagittarius and Aquarius and the idealism that both of them would just be like, let's change the world, you know, in their own styles. But I can definitely see that, and probably people can resonate with friendships in their life. Like, we've got a sextile. Like, guys.
So it's always like fire trines air, and vice versa, and then earth trines
or sextiles.
That's what I mean. Yes, there's sextiles. But if you want to look at the elements as a quick and easy way to figure out how they're working with each other.
Absolutely. So that should give people enough to sink their teeth into if they want to play with their own chart and see if maybe they see some of those aspects. If you are not used to symbols, it can seem kind of weird. A lot of them are obvious, like the square symbol. You can kind of see that, but there's so many lines in the chart. Sometimes people, when they're first learning, so you might have more success identifying the degree and the sign and thinking about it that way if you have trouble reading all those lines.
I totally agree. Well, the site that I just used to pull up the celebrity charts, they have a function where you can put in your own chart information. And if you scroll down, it lists it out and says moon opposite, whatever. So you don't have to decipher the symbols if you're not quite there yet. It even gives you the orb, which I think is pretty cool.
I think that's really cool. That site's a great resource. And I hope that people, I think we can call this one a wrap and then look forward. I'm already looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. If you like this video, let us know below. And if there's anything you'd like to see in future videos, comment, let us know. Share with your friends that are also astro curious and wanting to learn more, because sharing information and watching your friends and family is the best way to learn astrology, observing patterns in people.
Yes, that is for sure. And yeah, KJ and I are constantly at it, doing content for the Jan Spiller website. I encourage you to go check it out. And the memberships, this is all in Jan's honor. She really wanted this site to continue as a resource for people. And it's just been an amazing journey being able to do that. And then KJ came on board last year, and it's so nice to be able to do this together. And yeah, check out the memberships and support what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's been amazing doing this and carrying on someone's legacy and honoring their wishes. I think that's like just one of the greatest gifts that you can give. I feel really lucky to be here, and Steph is so much fun to work with, and I'm gonna always remember that we're just the kids of the zodiac.
I know. I try to always do that for sure. And yeah, we'll just keep it going for next time. It sounds like potentially the transits might be on the menu, but we're gonna just collect it, and we'll just start building a series to answer your questions.
Yeah, we can go into transits, aspects of the nodes, aspect patterns. So let us know what you like and what you're interested in.